it frustrates me that we look at youngsters in South Africa when, like, we call a youngster and we say a 20-year-old, whereas in rugby or in cricket or in the EPL, 14-year-old, that's a youngster. When you're 20, okay. Do I understand what's going on in this contract? Because that's what we are facing in especially soccer. And it's so sad, but that's what's happening. Soccer players don't understand what they're signing for. That's why you find that at the end of the contract, the teams can just let them go and they don't know what to do with themselves. You find that there's only one banner. There's no investment in it, but we also need to see what these girls have given us as a country. We went into the World Cup. We qualified to go to the World Cup twice, right? We won. AFCON. Do you get what I'm saying? So what do we need to do to prove ourselves that we are worthy of the investment? But because she was black and she was winning.
And she came from South Africa.
She comes from Africa. You know? Let's not take away that fact.
Yes, exactly.
She comes from Africa. And that had to be taken. Why you?
It's another episode on Hot Seat with Penzola. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm very excited today as we are still celebrating Women's Month. Today I've got Nonhlanhla who is here to literally talk to me about her passion for sports as a female, especially because there is a narrative. If we look at our soccer, there is a narrative that the male team gets a lot more supporters, they earn more money, than the female team. And we are just here to unpack some of these dynamics and demystify some of the thinking that women generally don't watch soccer. And I mean, that's really why we exist. So Nonhlanhla, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really am honored, and I hope you're going to enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. So before we get into your passion for sports, tell my viewers who's Nonhlanhla. What is she about? Let's get to know you a little bit.
Nonhlanhla is a mom, but a sports-loving fan. Used to be an analyst, but going back to it now, I live for sports. I breathe. Everything about me is sports. People know me regarding sports, the teams that I support. I'm very passionate about sports. I used to play sports in school. Unfortunately, life happened, but and those are the struggles that as young women we face in South Africa when we are in sports. But that is who Nonhlanhla is. Right.
So you talk about you having been an analyst. And then what happened? And then I'm glad you're saying you're going back. Because, but talk to me, what happened?
So when it comes to being an analyst in sports, there's a lot of work that goes into it, right? And certainly part of being a woman in sports, you need to have a 9-to-5 and also work in sports. And we are faced with a lot of challenges that as you mentioned, the income part of it. I still need to eat.
You still need to pay bills.
I still need to eat. I still need to pay the bills. And at the time, it didn't, being honest. And I look back at it. Now I'm thinking about it and I'm like, oh, okay.
There is actually a career. I mean, I see it all the time.
There is a career out there, being honest. There is a career now. Older days, women needed to work 10 times harder than men.
Correct.
Or they needed to then jump certain hoops to actually be part of.
But also the stigma that says you're a woman. What do you know about sports?
What do you know? Because you get questioned a lot about that. What do you know about offside? What do you know about a free kick? Like those questions. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, I follow you a lot, right? So I know you're passionate about sports. But I want to specifically, start talking around the soccer. I mean, as a result of the fact that I love soccer. And when I follow you, and you do a lot of analysis, you do a lot of predicting the scores and stuff. So what inspired that? What inspired that? I mean, even wanting to be an analyst. I know you said you used to play sports, but what's the driver of that?
So for me, I grew up in a very sports-loving home.
Okay.
My dad used to love sports. I remember my first experience with sports, well, with soccer. My dad would watch almost every weekend, but 1994, I fell in love with soccer, right? When I watched the World Cup in the US.
Yeah.
And from then on, it just has been, I always say that has been my first love. From then on, I was very interested in knowing how the players get to where they are, what's behind the scenes in sports, in soccer, what do they need to do? And I love fitness, and the two are intertwined,
correct,
you know.
correct.
So I just love the fact that in order for you to be great, you need to be disciplined, and that also goes in my passion for soccer, for sports, any kind of sports that I watch. So that it started there. I think 94. It went on with boxing. It went on and on with other sports, Formula One. I can count a lot. Cricket. I'm very diverse when it comes to sports. I don't just watch soccer. So it's something that I just fell in love with. And from then on, it has been my love since I was a child. And the fact that, as I mentioned, my dad used to own a soccer team.
Right.
And I used to help him run the team, and understood a lot of what needs to go into it, not just what you see during 90 minutes of the game.
Right.
So for me, it has been just my love ever since, and I've never turned back, I guess. Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned something around you understand it much better, not only what we see in the final 90 minutes, you know. And one of the things that always puzzles me is that a sports career is a very short career, right? And whilst we are all aware of this, you know, and I'll make an example with most soccer players that we've seen that actually have died, others are still alive, but they, you know, their houses are getting repossessed and stuff. How do we, in your opinion, how do we transform that? And how do we ensure that and instill the right behavior or the right kind of literacy around the fact that, I mean, you and I have a corporate job, and we can retire at 60, which on a monthly basis we save for retirement. But for a 10 or 15-year career, and you know, at the time you retire, you run out of cash. What, you know, and it repeats itself. It's like it keeps on repeating itself. How do you see, in your opinion, us transforming that?
I've always said this. I'm a huge believer in development, and we need to go back to our schools. You look at your basketball, when kids are still in primary school, right? They get introduced to financial education. You know, when they move to varsity, one thing that is very crucial is not the fact that can you play the sport, is also how are you doing academically? Yes, you know. Yes. So I've said this. We need to bring back your school of excellence in our schools. You know, we need to, because school of excellence used to balance the two.
Correct.
You used to have the academics, and then you used to have sports. That's why we have people like your Stephen Pinar that come from that, and they're doing well now as retired players. But because now we don't have that invested in our sports, in our schools, especially in township, you get the fact that, oh, you just know soccer, go do that. Do they actually look after your financial education, your mental health? Do they look after your nutrition? Do they teach you about all that? Because that is important. You get players that are still playing now. And I know a lot of people will say this. You get your Cristiano Ronaldo. He's still playing because he has invested in his nutrition. He has invested in his publicist. He's invested in himself. He has a whole team that looks after him. And if most soccer players, and they can do that and invest in themselves outside being signed to a certain team, I think that will actually change the game, especially for girls. And I'm glad to see, I'm glad that I can see young girls right now doing that. They're looking after themselves on what they eat. and because they know it is a short-term career. And then what's going to happen if I get injured, right? What's going to happen if they drop me from the squad? And there are other careers, there are other gaps that I can close as a sports person other than playing sports or hockey or netball or whatsoever. But development is very important. We cannot shy away from the fact that if we don't touch that part, there's nothing that we can do. We'll still have soccer players that are very reckless with their money, that don't look after themselves physically, mentally, and most soccer players are coming from the township, and that's the truth of it all. And if we don't then teach them about finance, who will? Right.
So, I mean, look, I think you've definitely got a point there around the foundation and the learnings that come from the early age, and both from the individual, but what's the responsibility of those of the clubs, right? So in the of the school of excellence, the person starts playing whenever, and they sign this contract, and so what is the responsibility of the club, in your opinion?
So I feel like when a club signs you, and most people don't know this, a lot of clubs do offer financial education, right?
Wow.
But it is up to a player then to take it up and say, okay, I do want to go to school. We've seen some certain players, your Jimmy Tau, your Majoro, have taken that. Your Refilo Jane, when it comes to women, Amanda Dlamini, that they've taken up those opportunities when they're still within their clubs, and they say, okay, let me go to school while I'm doing this thing that I'm passionate about, because I also need to be realistic. I also need to look at the career that I've chosen for myself. So if your club offers that, do take it up. But if it doesn't, also look at yourself and say, I can account for them. I can account for myself, and then let me go to school. We have a lack of agents in South Africa, and that's just it. We don't have a lot of nutritionists. We don't have a lot of sports conditioning coaches. And when you look at that, if I play soccer, then I can close that gap. How many people do own your FIFA licenses in South Africa? Quite a few, and I feel like that's what we have to be concentrating on as players, as people that are involved in sports, and start investing on ourselves, and close those gaps.
So now let me pick your brain a little bit around the different types of sports. We've got your rugbies, your cricket, your tennis, and the financial situation for all the other sports don't sort of land up that way. It's it's the soccer.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it the demographics, or because rugby? I mean, if you look at the people that had played rugby before who have retired, they still live at Eye of Africa. They still live at Eagle Canyon Golf Estate.
True.
The tennis and what do you call the other one? The guys that do athletics.
Yes.
They've got money. So what is the thing here?
Education. Let's go back to development. When it comes to rugby, for example, right? There's varsity rugby. We don't have varsity soccer. Do we? No. That has disappeared. We have an association that is there that has not actually invested back into our schools. In order for you to be a top player in rugby, you need to go through varsity. And that's what I've said, development. If I cannot reach a 14-year-old young boy from Soweto, right, and then tell them about finances, about looking after themselves, about retirement, about the endless opportunities that are out there in sports, then they know, right? But that needs to come in our high school education, in varsity. Offer that, bring that back. And the reason why it's not happening, right now, when you go to UJ, right? UJ has varsity, like they have varsity cups where Tuks will compete against UJ. But the main thing is, in order for you to play,
you've got to be in varsity.
You need to be in varsity. And that goes with a lot. It goes with, am I going to educate myself? Am I going to take that responsibility? Those boys are receiving nutrition education. They're receiving a lot of education there. But it changes how you navigate this career, this short-term career that you have as a sports person. But as I said, development for me is the crux of it all. If we cannot then look after that, then when it comes to soccer, we'll forever have that conversation of having players that have lost their money, having players that get into a 500,000 car and then crashing it, because they didn't drive before, right? Did you even take them to lessons and understood that if I put you in this kind of environment, what will you do with it? Investing, finances, right? The fact that we have a couple of agents that are looking after the whole of the PSL, whereas they don't look after the actual players to say, okay, this is the player that I'm looking at. What other gaps can we close for you as a player? So for me, as young as 14 years old, as young as 10 years old, it frustrates me that we look at youngsters in South Africa when, like, we call a youngster and we say a 20-year-old, whereas in rugby or in cricket or in the EPL, 14-year-old, that's a youngster. When you're 20, okay. You're no longer a youngster.
Correct. So tell me about this. I know the last time I chatted to you, I think you were busy with a project for soccer players. I don't know what type of business you guys were starting, and obviously, and this is one of the reasons I invited you, because you sounded so passionate about transforming the industry as a whole. I mean, it's obviously one day at a time. You know, you can't change the whole world overnight. But what was that project about?
So make your career your passion, right? Make your passion your career. Sorry about that.
No worries.
But yeah, so it was just educating the soccer players, right? Especially young girls, because I used to work with the VES team, just to let them know, look after your finances. This is how financial education is important. What happens if this doesn't work out? What happens if you get injured tomorrow? Do you ever think about that? Are there schools that you can go to? And there are endless schools, and people, it's just that they don't have that information. And once they have that information, look after yourself. That's why you're getting people like David Beckham right now that own Inter Miami, right? Because
and he hasn't
Beckham,
played in years.
He hasn't played for years. Now he has signed the biggest soccer player, right? We have ever seen in the past 10 years, right? They're creating their own soccer league there. Wow. And it's because the man understood that when I retire, what will I then do next? Do you get what I mean? But you need to know the numbers. You need to read your contract. You need to be able, when someone places that contract to you, do I understand what's going on in this contract? Because that's what we are facing in especially soccer. And it's so sad, but that's what's happening. Soccer players don't understand what they're signing for. That's why you find that at the end of the contract, the teams can just let them go and they don't know what to do with themselves. But they need to understand what they're signing for. What will then happen to me if ever the club says, I'm letting you go, right? What happens when I put on that jersey? What happens with all the crowd that I'm seeing? If I'm going to be at FNB Stadium, what happens with this body? Let this body work for me, right? We have, David Beckham didn't just start the way he is. He was a model at some point, and he used that money to make it. And the endorsements and everything else. But I need to understand what I'm signing for, right?
No, totally with you there. Let's talk about the current sporting events that we've got in the country. We've got the World Cup netball, and the World Cup, I think that's happening in Sydney, Banyana. Okay, so the first thing is the disparities or the less attention that Banyana are getting, how do you think, you know, we improve the visibility in promoting inclusive soccer, right? So, and you see it even with the supporters, right? So if, no matter how bad Bafana play, that the ad space, the advertising space will be booked and full.
Yeah.
There will be supporters. But when Banyana plays, you know, the vibe. I mean, Philip is not here, right? We're not
Philip
feeling
is
the
gone.
Philip is gone, right?
Yeah.
So, and you also can't blame products that want to advertise during a soccer match, yeah, Bafana, because they know people are watching. Versus when Banyana, because it's limited, the ARs speak for themselves. It's limited viewers.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, how do you think we promote as a country, as normal citizens, as the media? What can we do to improve that?
Let's go back to, you know, I've said this, right, before, and people, the last time they watched Banyana, and this is the truth of the matter, they watched them win AFCON.
Yes.
They stopped. Right? They forgot that there was a whole league of women's league that was going on. That's why right now we're having a debate on why do we have this particular goalkeeper, not the other. But because people have not been following the sports.
Yes.
Do you get what I'm saying? So also in our schools, do we have female soccer teams? No, we don't. Right?
Well, there and there.
But they few, right? And you get to a point where you ask yourself that if we don't invest in our girls in a younger age and then start making people watch our girls, not just because there's a bigger event. You can't make people watch a World Cup whereas they didn't watch the league. One, they don't know the players, they don't know their performance, they don't know what they go through. Most of those ladies actually have 9 to 5s and that. So it's sort of a side hustle.
It's a side hustle.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas in soccer, whereas in male football,
male soccer, there's no side hustle.
You just
that is the real hustle.
It's your real hustle.
Yeah.
You have time to invest in yourself, and that is just sad. You know, yes, you get your players that are playing for Mamelodi Sundowns, and they have that revenue, and they can.
Well,
do you get what I'm saying?
If you play for Mamelodi
but
Sundowns.
Again, you look at what do we put in as parents, right? As association, as corporates as well. When you go to a briefing of Banyana or a female broadcasting soccer event, you find that there's only one banner there. There's no investment in it, but we also need to see what these girls have given us as a country. We went into the World Cup. We qualified to go to the World Cup.
Correct.
Twice, right?
Yeah.
We won AFCON. Do you get what I'm saying? So what do we need to do to prove ourselves that we are worthy of the investment?
Yeah.
We are worthy, instead of saying, okay, watch me for free. Because that's what happens.
That's what happens,
You take me to a small stadium where I can injure myself and then say, there you go, you can then play.
Yeah.
Whereas you take Bafana to FNB Stadium and there's 3-4 people that are going to watch.
Yeah. Look, it is a sad reality, and we are where we are. I guess this is why we're having these conversations, so that we, you know, if we're able to shift the mindset, 1 or 2 people, you know, it's at least, you know, it's really one conversation at a time, in my opinion. But I wanna just ask you this question. You know, most of the time when you look at the girls that play soccer, there was always that stigma that is linked to the fact that the girls that play soccer are lesbians, right? And I still think that narrative is sort of there, because when I am in a group of people and there's a game, I make sure I want to watch the game, and then you know, there'll be other ladies that say, Kana wena, you're with the boys. It's like there's something wrong, you know. You shouldn't be, you know. And I hear guys saying they fight for the remote with their wives to watch soccer. There's no fight at my house.
No.
You know, we watch soccer together. So But if you look, do you think there's still that stigma
It
of
is very
Uti,
much.
if you're a lady playing soccer, you're a lesbian?
Yeah, that stigma won't go away. Like Penny, I analyze football in different platforms, right? Any other social platforms, and there's always going to be someone that's going to come in on my social platform and ask me, what do you know about football? Why are you watching football alone? Oh, and then it will then go back to the way you look. Why are you sitting there by yourself? Where is your partner? People never look at the fact that you actually are interested in this.
Yeah.
But also as women, we contribute to that. I would like to say that. Because, for example, I would see certain players, for other women will see certain players, and then it will move to then, oh, he looks like this. Oh, that. We also need to look at ourselves. Do we actually enjoy the sport, or do we enjoy looking at the men? Yeah, looking at the men. Yeah. You know, I mean, I was sad the fact that there was a video that came out now of Banyana singing. It was Refilwe Jane, and she had to come out and say, "No, ladies, I am married. Please don't look at who I am or how I look. But I need your support as a country." For her to actually come out and say that, she felt some kind of way, right? And she's all the way in New Zealand right now, in Australia.
Yes.
And I feel like women will always be objectified. And that's one thing we need to accept. But also, we need to speak up.
But why do we need to accept it? Because what I'm hearing you say is that we are the perpetuators of this behavior, right? So because even ourselves as women, we watch the soccer league, the guy ones, and then the Banyana we only watch them when there's a hype.
Yeah.
So because there's more women that watch football, male football, and that contributes to the numbers. Remember, when you want to advertise your product, it's based on the numbers. So if a Bafana match is going to have 1 million viewers, you will want to advertise versus a Banyana that will have 100 viewers, right? So it almost has to start with us. I'm hearing you say that.
Yeah.
It needs to
start with us. As I said, there's a whole league, right, that besides the main event, besides the World Cup, besides AFCON, besides the friendlies, there's a whole league that is there. We need to then watch, we need to analyze, we need to start being more visible, start talking about it. And let's not cut corners as women, right, when it comes to football or sports. Let's not cut corners. If I don't know, I don't know. If I know, I know. And let me speak boldly about that. The fact that I understand this game. I love this game. I don't love this game because someone spoon-fed the game to me.
Or
I
love
love
the guy
game. Yes, or I like the guy that looks. Do you get what I'm saying? I need to be bold and say. So I need more women to actually come out and talk about it and watch. Let's watch the game. Let's invest more in the game. You know, if I do go watch on a Saturday and a Sunday, then let me talk about it. I am at Tembisa Stadium and I'm watching the girls. Let me analyze. And sadly, yes, I still need to prove the fact that I know more than the gents do sometimes, but that's what I need to do at this current moment. And if I need to do that, that's what I need to do.
Sure.
Yeah. So let me watch the game. Let me follow it through. Am I going to only talk about Caster Semenya when she's going through what she's going through because I saw it in the papers, or am I following athletics? You know,
it's funny you bring that up because I know that she went through. They banned her at some point, not because she's got more, and she appealed, and then but I mean that whole saga where you can't compete because of how you were born, that's like total discrimination, right? But then again, you look at others. There are other sports people who are transgenders.
Yeah.
They chose physically to be female. Yeah. And where they were performing at a lower level as men, when they change their sex into becoming women, they then are high performers. Yeah. But no one's saying anything about it. No one is banning them. No one is saying, but you are actually a man because your hormones are. Do you understand? So. Yeah. There's also that whole I don't know if I should call it racism or classist or whatever, because he's from here. He's from Africa.
Yeah. I mean, right now there's, in the World Cup, we have the first transgender player who was celebrated. She comes from Canada. And that same question came. The same question came in and saying, why then? This man boldly said.
This man chose. He wasn't born like that.
Well, yeah, chose. That
but he's allowed to play with women.
And she's being celebrated, right? Whereas Caster, so the Caster issue, I've always said, is it a race issue or is it a gender issue? I so for me, it is a race issue. Yeah. I feel like she's black. We've seen more masculine athletics who look way than Caster Semenya, but because she was black and she was winning,
and she came from South Africa.
She comes from Africa. You know, let's not take away that fact.
Yes, exactly.
She comes from Africa, and that had to be taken. Why you? And that question was asked to her, why her? And then but then why are we celebrating this first transgender Canadian player? Whereas, what's the difference there? Yeah. Do you get what I'm saying? So then again, we also need to, the little jokes that we say about Caster. Oh no, she's a, oh he's a, she's a. That also comes from us. Do we participate in those conversations? What do? Do we talk about it? Because I feel like the more as African people we start talking about these conversations, and then we start supporting our own African players, right? Athletics everywhere, then we then put that in the forefront, people will then listen. But if we are amongst ourselves divided, then it will be easier for the people from Europe, Europe to then tell you who you are, because you need to know who you are, and then you tell the world, that's exactly who I am. And that's what Caster has been fighting for. And I'm glad she won the case.
She won.
I'm glad that she's going back. It has derailed her a bit, but but I believe in her. And I've strongly said that. I believe in Serena. Serena was subjected to the same thing.
Correct.
In tennis, right? But there's so much that's going on. And you look at the fact, is it a gender issue or is it a race issue?
Look, right? I definitely think that it's a gender and a race issue.
Yeah.
Generally, if you are a black female, you really struggle. You have to work 4 times harder.
Yeah.
And I think it's across all industries. It's not only in sports, even in the corporate space. World, and I'm yet to wonder, I'm wondering when that will change. How are we going to get to a point where we are all equal as let's just say maybe gender for now, because race, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, we need to take it a step at a time. But I think you're spot on, and thank you so much for sharing your opinions with us, and continue your journey of sports, and don't be derailed. Business, the soccer analysts, it's a career now. I think it's something that you need to consider. So I mean, I think the other thing that I just heard recently is around some of the teams like Abo Supersport and Abo Pirates, who are obviously are they disqualified, or is there potential?
There's potential
to be disqualified for not having women's team in their clubs. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, it seems to me like their hands are being twisted, like they don't have a choice. For us to even get to that point, right?
I don't understand for the life of me why a big team like Kaizer Chiefs, like Orlando Pirates,
they've got the money.
They have the money, but you look at the 2 biggest teams in South Africa, right? And it's debatable. I know we'll go back to that.
Look, let's not debate.
We'll not debate that. But by now we should have an Orlando Pirates women club. Why not? Right? Whereas we have your under 17s, we have your under 19s. And I'm glad that with CAF putting that rule in, saying that if you do want to participate with your male counterparts, we then need also a female team there, right? And for me, it has been long overdue. I mean,
long overdue.
It's long overdue. Sundowns will forever be there. And when Tsipe came through, and the fact that Royal AM took over, right? Bought the ladies, the Bloemfontein ladies,
Celtics,
and we have the. Why don't Kaiser Chiefs and Orlando
and
Pirates
Royal
have?
AM is like, you know,
Royal AM was literally
new.
Brand new. It is brand new. And for me, invest in the girls. You don't need your hand to be twisted. But if I have an Orlando Pirates women club, more people are then going to watch it.
Correct.
More people are going to invest in it. Or Kaiser Chiefs or Supersport. Yes.
Right? So if you're a Pirates fan, you support Pirates. Be it male
or females,
you'll still support.
Yes. So we need to also have our own clubs believing in our ladies as well. But if we're still fighting that, it's still going to be tough, unfortunately. But yeah, we'll see what will happen in a couple of years. I like the fact that there's a bit of change.
Correct.
There's a bit of light.
There's an ultimatum.
Yeah, whether it is forced or not. But here we are.
Yeah.
Then we need to deal with it.
Correct. So lastly, I mean, somebody's watching that wants to pursue either to play soccer or to be a soccer analyst, or they're just passionate about sports or soccer. What would you say to them? You know, if they're thinking about, you know, getting into the sports industry.
Educate yourself. Take yourself seriously. Invest in yourself. There's so much that is out there when it comes to sports than just actually playing for the 90 minutes, right? Educate yourself. The fact that you need to work 10 times harder, then put in the education, put in the knowledge. It is not an easy journey.
It's exhausting.
You will forever be questioned. You say a comment, you make a mistake, while you're standing next to your male counterpart who has made tons of mistakes, right? And you're like, but I don't know what you're talking about. You make one mistake and then you're going to be crucified for that, right? But I always say, go at it. If you feel you're so passionate about it, it is fun, but it is not easy. And don't just look at the fact that you're just going to play. There are endless opportunities in sports. There's sports conditioning coaches. There's financial education. Now I'm loving the fact that we're seeing more lawyers coming in, right? And teaching. There's nutritionists. We're seeing females that now are training our male counterparts.
Correct.
So there's so much that is going on in sports right now. Don't just look at one part of the sports. There's so much. Learn as much as you can. When you get in there, just learn as much as you can. Don't be derailed. It's not an easy journey. Certain things, we won't change them now. But while we're at it, I always say, once you back yourself up with that education, with that knowledge, when people know what you're talking about, they listen to you more. They start watching you more. They start investing in you. Invest in your own career. Get yourself a nutritionist. Get yourself a publicist. Get yourself a sports conditioning coach. We take that lightly. Yes, you get training at your own club or at school or wherever, but take yourself seriously. Look after this body that is actually looking after you. And that's just in it. Invest in yourself as a sports person. Take yourself as that. Don't look at yourself as, oh, I'm just doing this as by the way thing. Invest in yourself fully. What do I eat? When do I train? Do I watch the sports? And don't just watch what everybody's watching. Am I watching everything? Do I know what is Lewis Hamilton going through, Serena Williams is going through? Let me know what's happening in the sporting world. Alcaraz, what's happening in tennis? Know what's happening. In finances, what happened to the soccer players that lost their money? Do I want to be that person? No, I don't want to be that person. How do I change that? I need to invest in myself financially. I need to have that financial education. I need to have a team. Sometimes I need to have a team because I might not be able to handle everything, but I need to have a team that will back me up. And there are agents out there that are doing so. Look after them and go and sign yourself up for such. And yeah.
Yeah, look, I think that's great advice. But I think the other thing also that we need to consider, I mean, you spoke a lot about some of the kids coming from the township. I think where resources are scarce, for you to get a coach, for you to get a nutritionist, for you to get a sports conditioning coach can be quite a challenge. So yeah, I think, you know, for me, I'm thinking along the lines of that boy in the township. As a mother of that boy, that you see the talent in your son, you know, and I start to wonder if there are any facilities that are free, that, you know, that can take in those people that are not financially privileged. I mean, you know, maybe you and I can take our kids to get that, but someone else might not be able to. So those are the other considerations that we need to think about. And I mean, if you're watching and you do know of any of those organizations, please don't be shy to drop a comment with contact details. Ultimately, these conversations are meant to transform our society. And if you have any knowledge in relation to, you know, the development or School of Excellence or whatever it is that is out there, you know, please share it with us. And don't forget to like, subscribe. And if you do have a question, pop it in there. Either if it's to me or Nonhlanhla, will definitely be responding to your questions. And thank you so much for sitting through this conversation. Really, really appreciate Nonhlanhla. And I think as women in sports, there's still a long way, but you know, change is coming, whether forced or voluntary, but it's definitely coming. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Cheers. Hey.
Yeah, let's retake the intro.
Oh, okay.
So if you flow,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's beautiful. Just even in one.
Okay.
Okay. In 5.
Songtini ke Ntando. It's another episode of Hot Seat with Penzola. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you you see?
So.
And that was flowing.
No. So we do this like 10 times before we get
It's
it right.
sports. It is to be used.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cheers.
Let's do a cheers.
Mara, she can't drink that one.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, the director is happy.
No.
The director is happy.